Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz are walking straight into a physical trap at the US Open, and Patrick Mouratoglou finally just explained why they might completely collapse in New York. While the mainstream media brushes off their missing warm-up tournaments as routine rest, the legendary coach broke his silence to expose a terrifying medical reality that the ATP Tour desperately wants to keep quiet. He didn't just point out their injuries, he revealed a hidden, physiological time bomb waiting to detonate under the world's top two players. A trap that has destroyed the careers of former champions. And there is one specific rival in the locker room who has already identified this exact weakness and is quietly plotting to exploit it. I will reveal exactly who that predator is in just a moment, but first, you need to understand the fatal flaw Mouratoglou just exposed. If you think the US Open trophy is already locked up between these two young kings, Mouratoglou is about to prove you dead wrong. On paper, Sinner and Alcaraz look completely invincible. They have split the Grand Slams this year. They possess a level of shot-making that no one else on the tour can consistently match. But Grand Slams are not played on paper. They are played inside the humid, suffocating, absolute pressure cooker of New York City in late August. They are played on unforgiving, joint-punishing DecoTurf hard courts, where matches regularly drag past midnight and stretch into 4 or 5-hour physical marathons that test the absolute limits of human endurance. To survive that brutal environment, raw talent alone is simply not enough. You can hit a forehand 100 miles per hour, but if your legs give out in the fourth set, you are packing your bags. To win a hard-court Grand Slam, you need a very specific, invisible weapon. A weapon that neither Jannik Sinner nor Carlos Alcaraz has right now. What is this missing piece? It is something elite tennis coaches call competitive scar tissue. Look closely at the summer scorecard that the mainstream media seems to be conveniently ignoring. Carlos Alcaraz vanished from competitive hard courts following his lingering wrist issues, completely skipping the crucial North American preparation block. Jannik Sinner was forced to undergo emergency medical scans and abruptly pull out of the Cincinnati Masters, openly admitting in a public statement that his right knee was structurally not ready to handle the heavy load of competitive match play. The casual media calls this load management. Patrick Mouratoglou calls it something completely different, an impending physical disaster. And when you look at the biomechanics of what they are about to face, you will see exactly why. When you look at modern professional tennis, hard courts are without a doubt the most destructive surface on the human body. Unlike clay, which allows a player to gracefully slide into their shots and absorb momentum, or grass, which is soft on the joints, DecoTurf is practically painted concrete. Every single change of direction requires a sudden, violent deceleration. When a modern player attempts to slide on a hard court, a technique both Sinner and Alcaraz use frequently, their ankles, knees, and hips are forced to absorb up to 4 times their body weight in kinetic force. To withstand that terrifying level of physical punishment over 7 best-of-5 set rounds, your muscles, ligaments, and tendons need to be gradually conditioned through actual tournament matches. You absolutely cannot build that structural resistance in a low-intensity practice session. Practice allows an athlete to control the tempo. In practice, you hit comfortable 6-shot rallies, you take 3-minute water breaks between sets, and if a joint starts to ache, you immediately stop the drill and call it a day. In a Grand Slam main draw, you do not get to control anything. You are locked inside an arena against a hungry, fully fit qualifier who has already won 3 qualifying matches, has his eye on a career-defining upset, and will happily keep you sprinting side to side until 2 in the morning. This brings us to Mouratoglou's first specific, dire warning, and it centers on the Spanish phenom, Carlos Alcaraz. When Alcaraz is operating at 100%, his physical gifts are unmatched in the history of the sport. He can sprint down impossible drop shots, slide violently into corner forehands, and generate unbelievable whip-like racket head speed out of nowhere. Because of this supreme athleticism, he operates with a massive margin over the rest of the field. But Mouratoglou openly acknowledged a terrifying reality when he stated, "Does he have a chance?" He always will because he and Jannik have so much margin, but he hasn't played a single match for so long. He'll have so many aches and pains after his first match. We don't know how his body will react. Besides the physical aspect, competition is competition. When you're away from it for a long time, it's complicated. Did you catch the hidden warning in that statement? The real danger for Carlos Alcaraz isn't necessarily losing his opening round match. The danger is a physiological delayed onset. The real nightmare starts 36 hours later when he wakes up in his hotel room to prepare for round 2. When an elite athlete goes months without playing a full-throttle competitive match, their nervous system and soft tissues experience acute, massive shock after round 1. Alcaraz's game is built on sheer violence. His forehand requires an extreme grip and aggressive wrist snap. That wrist has to repeatedly absorb heavy, high-velocity topspin balls over 3 straight hours. If Carlos gets pulled into a heavy 4-set battle in the blistering heat of the afternoon in round 1, how does his body respond the next day? The wrist begins to inflame. The forearms tighten up. The shoulder loses that relaxed, explosive snap. If his wrist stiffens up by just 5%, his timing on the forehand goes slightly off. If his timing goes off by a fraction of a millisecond, he starts missing his targets by inches. Balls that usually paint the baseline suddenly land in the net or fly wide. Suddenly, that massive superhuman margin that makes Carlos Alcaraz look utterly unbeatable vanishes into thin air. He goes from being a tennis god to an incredibly vulnerable 21-year-old trying to fight his own body. Now let's look at the other half of this equation. The world number 1, Jannik Sinner. If Alcaraz's biggest hurdle is physical rust and muscular shock, Sinner's situation is far more dangerous, because his issue involves an active, heavily load-bearing joint. Sinner withdrew from Cincinnati with lingering, highly concerning right knee issues. In his own official statement, he gave a surprisingly blunt admission. "My right knee has been bothering me, and even though we have been working hard with my medical team, I have to accept that I'm not ready to compete yet." Think deeply about the specific biomechanics of Jannik Sinner's game. Sinner doesn't just hit the ball, he crushes it with extreme coiled torque. He utilizes an incredibly wide base, dropping aggressively low into his knees on every single baseline exchange to generate pure, flat, laser-like power. When his knee is compromised, his entire kinetic chain is broken. His ability to push off the court, explode into his serve, and absorb the brutal shock of lateral stops is immediately hindered. Mouratoglou analyzed Sinner's terrifying predicament and pointed out an enormous paradox. He said, "Am I worried about Jannik? Yes and no. I'm not saying, wow, he's going to come to the US Open without having played a match. He did that before and won. Again, he has so much margin. But he had his knee problem. There's a lot of pressure in a Grand Slam. He'll have to be very efficient and not spend too much time on the court. He'll have to crush the opponent." Look closely at that final chilling phrase. He will have to crush the opponent. Why is that phrase so dangerous? Because Mouratoglou is outlining an extremely narrow, almost impossible path to victory. To protect his knee from completely blowing up over a demanding 2-week tournament, Sinner cannot afford any slow starts. He cannot drop early sets. He absolutely cannot afford long, dramatic 4-hour battles in the opening rounds. He is fundamentally forced to play high-risk, hyper-aggressive, first-strike tennis to keep rallies under 5 shots and finish matches in under 90 minutes. That creates massive, suffocating psychological pressure. What happens if an opponent plays out of their skin, refuses to miss, and forces Sinner into long, grinding 20-ball rallies? Sinner's knee is put under immense, repeated strain. If he starts subconsciously favoring one leg, or avoiding hard, sudden changes of direction to protect his joint, his world-class movement breaks down. And once your movement breaks down on a hard court, your racket skills do not matter. You are completely at the mercy of the draw. And that leads directly to the most explosive factor of all, the one the media is completely ignoring: the psychological shift inside the ATP locker room. Professional tennis players are ruthless, calculating competitors. They don't just watch match highlights on YouTube, they study medical reports, analyze press conferences, and dissect practice footage looking for any sign of weakness. Normally, when players see Jannik Sinner or Carlos Alcaraz in their section of the draw, they are mentally defeated before they even walk out of the tunnel. They know that beating either of them requires playing the absolute perfect match of their lives. But the moment the locker room realizes that both top seeds are carrying severe physical question marks and entering the tournament without a shred of hard-court match fitness, the entire dynamic of the tournament shifts completely. A massive, dangerous power vacuum opens up. Remember that rival I mentioned earlier? The one waiting to exploit this exact scenario? Suddenly, former champions like Daniil Medvedev see a golden, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Medvedev knows every single inch of the Flushing Meadows courts. And more importantly, Medvedev's entire game style is built on inflicting agonizing physical punishment. He will happily sit 10 feet behind the baseline, track down 50 balls in a row, and act as a human backboard. He will make you hit one extra shot, over and over again, until your lungs burn and your legs give out. If Medvedev faces a compromised Sinner or a rusty Alcaraz, he won't try to blast them off the court with winners. He will intentionally, sadistically drag them into a physical marathon. He will hit deep, heavy balls to test whether their joints can hold up to the torture. Then you have a player like Alexander Zverev. Zverev possesses one of the biggest serves on the planet and has been knocking on the door of a Grand Slam title for years. He has the firepower to take the racket completely out of a compromised player's hands. You also have a hungry pack of top 20 hardcourt specialists, including massive servers like Taylor Fritz, who know that this might be their single best chance in the next 5 years to capture a Grand Slam title, while the two dominant forces of the sport are extremely vulnerable. Patrick Mouratoglou concluded his dark breakdown with 3 strict, non-negotiable conditions that will ultimately decide Sinner and Alcaraz's fate over the next 2 weeks. He stated, "The two will play only if there's no risk of aggravating the injury, if they feel physically ready, and depending on their level of tennis. If these 3 conditions are met, they'll play. Otherwise, they probably won't." 3 simple conditions: 0 risk, total readiness, elite level. But anyone who has ever played competitive sports knows the terrifying truth. Checking all 3 of those boxes without a single proper match of preparation is almost scientifically impossible. If they push themselves too hard in pursuit of a trophy, driven by ego and expectation, they risk long-term structural damage that could derail not just the US Open, but their entire upcoming seasons. If they step onto the court anything less than 100% ready for war, the rest of the tour is waiting in the shadows, ready to pounce and tear them apart. The stage is officially set. The draw is looming and the pressure is mounting to a boiling point. Will Jannik Sinner's knee survive the most brutal, unforgiving hard courts in the world? Can Carlos Alcaraz overcome months of accumulated rust without his body breaking down under the bright New York lights? Or are we about to witness the most chaotic, upset-filled, and unpredictable US Open in modern tennis history? Who do you think actually takes the title if both Sinner and Alcaraz fall early to injuries? Do we see a veteran like Medvedev reclaim the throne, or does a dark horse shock the world? Drop your ultimate US Open champion prediction in the comments below right now. And if you want to see our full, deep dive breakdown of the exact tactical trap Daniil Medvedev is setting up for this tournament, make sure to click the video on your screen right now. You do not want to miss what he has been working on. We will see you over there.